I want people to get hope, and I get so energized talking about this. So my transformation story started about 10 years ago, and I was at the lowest point in my life, and I was depressed. I didn't know I was depressed, but there were a lot of events that led to that, and I just felt very alone.
Your success and growth all start in your mind. So get ready for another mind shift. Hello and welcome back to the show. If you're just discovering me, my name is Joshua Kangley, and this show is all about positivity, inspiration, and motivation. Our next guest has a very inspiring story for us all, and we'll get to her momentarily. But before we do, I just want to say thank you so much for discovering me, if you just have, and I welcome you here. You have come to the right place if you, like many of us are, looking for more positivity, inspiration, and motivation in our lives. If you're still wondering who I am, Joshua Kangley, please go to www.hellomynamesjosh.com. There you'll learn more about me, and all my podcasts and shows are archived there for you to listen to, watch, and enjoy at any time. Also, if you have any questions about me, the show, any guest on the show, or if you think you know someone who should be on the show, please email me, josh@hellomynamesjosh.com. Now, our next guest has a very inspirational story. It's very relevant because we're talking about transformation and her transformational story. Right now, we're going through sort of a collective transformation, right? And I think this is very relevant and important for us to talk about. So I can't wait to talk about that with her. She is a best-selling author, and her name is Aruna Krishnan. Let's get to her story now. Aruna, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. I'm happy that you are here because I think like right now more than ever, this is a great topic that we're about to discuss. And, you know, who better to discuss that than you with your powerful podcasts and books that you have. So before we get into that though, Arun, if you can, I'll give you, some people are just discovering the show. So if you can just kind of introduce yourself to everybody.
Yeah, sure. My name is Aruna Krishnan. I'm a strategy consultant. I have about 15 plus years of experience in the technology field. And I recently launched my own business to help small business owners define their growth. And I also am an author and a podcast host. And a lot of the topics in my books and podcasts relate to leadership and competencies within leadership. And one of my biggest goals in life with those platforms is to help inspire people, help them grow, and find happiness through that.
I love that. And I love your mission too. You're someone who I call a guiding light. So anyone who's watched the show, you're a true guiding light, and you're taking your talents, your gifts, your expertise and helping other people with that. So
thank you so much.
Yeah, I appreciate you, number one, for that. So transformation and mindfulness is a kind of a big topic that you discuss a lot. So if you can you tell us about your transformation in life?
Yeah, sure. I love talking about this because I want people to get hope, and I get so energized talking about this. So my transformation story started about 10 years ago, and I was at the lowest point in my life, and I was depressed. I didn't know I was depressed, but there were a lot of events that led to that. And I just felt very alone, and I had lots of questions. And I was alone, not in the physical sense, but just alone and not feeling like I had answers. So there were some relationships that I did not know how to resolve. And I was, I guess, very confused. So the approach that I took was that, okay, I need to search for answers. And for me, that took the form of spiritual answers. I said, I'm going to go this route and see what happens here. And I went very diligently to the library. So I love sharing this because I think a lot of people don't realize this. So I picked up a book on Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, Sikhism, and I think a few other things, and mindfulness, of course. And every book that I read, the core message was exactly the same. And that core message was, it's really that happiness really depends on what you do with yourself. And you have that control of defining like how good of a person you are, how good of a person you are to others. And that's what leads to happiness. And that's such a powerful message. And especially when it comes from 5 different sources, right? It's hard to ignore that.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this is amazing, because in mainstream, I think we unfortunately lose track of that message, right? But in all the books, if you really look underneath all the layers, that's the message. So then I said, okay, this is really interesting. And I'm very intrigued by this. I said, well, let's try it. I have nothing to lose at this point, right? Yeah. So I said, okay, I'm going to go this mindfulness route. It seems simple enough. It's things that I can do on my own. So then I took a few more books on mindfulness, read about how I can do some of the meditation. So I started with that route, really traditional meditation, 20 minutes every day. And I think within a month, I started seeing some changes. I started feeling this clarity, and I started feeling this calm. And that was really amazing, because I think it's just that power of the mind we so underestimate every day, because we're just such busy people, right?
Yeah.
So that immediate relationships changes were with my husband, with my kids, with my coworkers. And so then I was a total believer in the system to say that, yes, this I think is going to change my life. And some of the really critical relationships that were causing, I guess, a lot of pain in my life, I said, okay, I need to address these relationships. And I think the key in there is to have that compassion and empathy for the other person, which as human beings, it really takes intention to actually think that way, right?
Yes.
Because we're always feeling like they did this to me, and then we shut down and we make them the enemy, right? But if we could take that extra step to say, well, what made them do this? What is their angle, right? What are they going through? And when I did that with some of those relationships, I just realized a lot of these people they had a lot of hurt and insecurities that they were dealing with. And that was coming out in the form of this, like they would put this protective armor on, right? And so they'll try and react with you in a certain way that they're like, I don't want to deal with hurt ever again in my life. And this is how I'm going to come across, right? Because now I'm protecting myself. And when I started learning that, it was so powerful. Not just in personal relations, but even at work. You see that in certain leaders, in quotes, because I mean, obviously you don't want to come into leadership with all that insecurities, but when you see leaders behave in that way, you know that there's something going on there, that they have these insecurities, and then it guides you onto how you should have that relationship. Now, I mean, just to say that not every situation is going to be that, oh, they have an angle, we need to forgive them. There might be certain situations where someone is just like toxic beyond control, and it gives you that awareness too, that, okay, you know what, I think it's best to keep away. So there will be certain times where it's best to keep away from this type of situation. Maybe this person, if I cannot help them, then they need to go seek help before I can engage with them. So that's a huge thing that I learned.
Absolutely. And there's a lot you mentioned in there that to kind of unpack a little bit that I think is so relevant. You mentioned at the lowest point that you were at, you felt alone and a lot of questions, and your kind of way out of that, if I'm understanding right, was more of a spiritual route. And you took those 5 sources, which are not just any sources. They're, you could say, ancient, sources. And so it's hard to deny those bits of wisdom in there. And so for you to be able to do that, find some commonalities, I think that's huge. And that kind of speaks of what I mean about maybe perhaps today there's so many of us who might be feeling alone more than ever, and a lot of questions. And so I guess my big question, and why I'm so excited to have you on, what do you think is the route for us to be more mindful or to find transformation in all this chaos and division,
Yeah, so that is interesting. And during this process, so I also read the Bhagavad Gita, and I think this is so relevant. And there's one part in there, and Bhagavad Gita is one of the texts in Hinduism. It's between like Krishna and Arjun, where they're having a conversation, but it is a religious text of sorts. But basically, one of the things I took away from there is that one thing that prevents you from having calm in your mind is having very strong allegiances. Like it could even be like the Packers versus 49ers, like, and you're watching that and you're stressed out. Watch your body. Like, it's good to have fun, but watch it without feeling like you're really going to lose something in it, right? And obviously with this week being election week, it's like really ground yourself here and make sure that, all right, like, settle your mind. Yes, there are two parties, but at the end of the day, what do we all want out of this? We want the country to be move forward in a positive way. We want to all get better. It doesn't really matter which side gets us there. I would think that either side should get us there. So I think there's so much hate going on there. I think we all need to take a step back and really think about what is it we want. Is it our parties, or do we want overall like happiness for our country? So I think we all need to remind ourselves of that and, remove ourselves a little bit, and also search for the truth a little bit more, because it's harder to find truth today, so just give yourself that a little question the truth a little bit more in that sense.
Yes, that is really good advice, especially, as the time of this recording, like you mentioned, this week is pretty divisive. And I think you hit it on the nail there when you said, when you become that allegiant, you sort of lose yourself a little bit, I think. And humans, I believe we live on a spectrum. How can we pigeonhole ourselves this way or that way?
Right.
And if you do that, you're losing so much more of yourself, I think. Of course, we all want, I think, to go forward in the best positive way, like you mentioned. And I think that's important, to take a step back through all this. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no problem.
Now, you have a podcast. Let's talk about that a little bit. So what encouraged you or inspired you to start your podcast?
Yeah, that's quite an interesting story. So I lost my job as a result of COVID in mid-March. And so I was doing my job search, and I had just published my book number 2. So I moved on to book number 3, which was called, I hadn't named it at the time, but basically it was on leadership. I knew the subtitle was Leadership for a Busy Mind. And I was interviewing some of my former leaders from the companies that I had worked in. And as I did like 5 or 6 of the interviews for my book, I was listening back to the audio. I said, oh, this could make really good podcast content, because podcasts usually share this type of stuff. But of course, they were all pretty casual in the nature of it. And I said, well, let's put it out there anyway, and I just did a little bit of editing. I said, I think this is a great opportunity to launch a podcast, see how it goes. Did some research and launched it as an experiment and say, let's see how this goes. And that's how it really started. And I got some positive feedback right away. And it felt like the right thing to do. Like, if I'm inspiring people right away to say like, oh, wow, we're hearing from real leaders. And yes, real leaders do have challenges. Real leaders do overcome these things that, yeah, it inspires me to take the next step. So then I felt like, oh, this is something I need to keep doing.
Yes.
And that's how that path started. And I'm really excited because season 2 is now going to come out on November 15th.
Oh, wow.
And and I've made a few changes to the podcast because I think a lot of it with transformation is one thing I've learned is be open to experimentation, be open to failure in quotes, because failure is not really failure, but it's just teaching you how to do things differently the next time. So that's how I got started. Yeah.
That's exciting for you. And you, like so many of us through COVID, had to make some pivots, and you took advantage of a situation, I think. And, why not now? Perfect time to do it. So congratulations. Right. What sort of topics do you generally hit on? Is it leadership or what kind of things do you like to discuss?
Yeah, a lot of it is I'll bring leaders on. So season 1 was a lot of, I brought on a lot of corporate leaders, I brought on a lot of entrepreneurs, and I brought on a lot of thought leaders. So people that just had certain ways of solving problems or something unique that they had, some unique methods that they had developed. I bring them on and share that with people because I learned so much. I mean, and that was the best part about podcasting. Every guest that I brought on, I was learning something myself. I'm like, well, if nothing, that's the greatest takeaway from this podcast, right? You learn so much and you meet people from across the world. Like I've met people from Japan, from the UK, Australia, and all over the US. And that's amazing, right? You don't normally get that opportunity, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And like you and I were able to connect as well. So it's just a great platform to connect and with other thought leaders and share ideas. And I think a lot of it's keeping the conversation going too. So, thank you for all. It's so exciting to hear that. And then now you mentioned your book as well. You have your book series, and you have a new one that's a part of that series coming out soon, right?
Yes. So the latest book, so I have a book series called the Busy Mind series. Book 3 to complete my trilogy is called Lead That Thing. So I named it after I launched the podcast, and I thought, well, rightfully then it should be called Lead That Thing because that's what launched the podcast. And so what is interesting and unique about the book is one of the sections is I talk about leadership in the animal world. And I've picked 3 different animals, the wolf, the cheetah, and the giraffe, and really look at how they lead and how they're successful as leaders and draw a parallel on some of those traits and how those traits can be applied in an organization. And it's really interesting how we can learn so much from animals because they're natural leaders. And like I say, they don't learn about leadership by reading a textbook, right? They live it day in, day out. It's like they learn from their environment. And then, of course, all the leaders that I interviewed for my podcast, actually interviewed for the book. There's about 6 of those leaders. They share their story, which is amazing. And then one thing that I really wanted to emphasize in this book is that leadership is not about a title. So I talk about leadership in the schools, leadership as a parent, leadership as in the community. Like these are all opportunities for leadership, right? And just for people to understand that you can be a leader in any capacity and every day, that it's not about having a title that implies leadership.
Yes, that sounds very interesting. I like the parallels that you were kind of drawing between the natural animal world and us, what we can learn as well from that, because like you said, they are natural leaders.
Right.
So that's very interesting. And now when is that new part due to come out?
The release date is November 15th, and it will be available on Amazon.
Okay. So we'll make sure to leave links there to where you can find that and also to your podcast as well. Now, I have to ask you because, like I said, you're a true guiding light. Like you said, you're keeping the conversation going, helping others. What inspires you? What has inspired you? What do you think in your life inspired you to do what you're doing?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think it's that I always love challenges. You
Mm,
know, like I can tell you in my 40s, I started my athletic journey. And I think a lot of that really helped me also find myself as an, and I get that credit to be part of my transformation. The spiritual transformation was a great foundation, but I did a marathon, never done anything athletic before, other than going to the gym 3 times a week. But marathon takes a whole nother level of training.
yes.
And then I've done like 4 triathlons and never really swam, like never really knew how to swim properly. It was an ugly swim, so I learned how to swim. And so I think I love to challenge myself. And now, even with entrepreneurship, I love that constantly learning. And I think that's what inspires me is like, I want to be stronger. I want to be better. And at the end, I want people to see my journey and be inspired by it. And that's what inspires me as well.
Absolutely. That's the definition of a true guiding light right there.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Aruna. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Thanks for sharing your story, and thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you so much, Josh. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you. Wow, what a great conversation. Aruna, I want to say thank you one more time for being on the show today with us and sharing with us your story and your story of transformation. Thank you so very much. Thank you for tuning in, for watching. What do you think? Comment what your favorite part of the show was. What did you think of Aruna's story today? Please comment. I read and reply to every single one. And I want to say thank you. Thank you for tuning in and coming along this journey with me. Thank you for keeping these conversations going. Thank you for keeping the channel growing as well. It means so much to me. This is my passion. This is my purpose. And you're helping me keeping the conversation going. So thank you so much. If you haven't yet, please like, share, subscribe. It would mean so much to me. And also, if you're still wondering who I am, you can go to www.hellomynameisjosh.com. You can learn more about me there, and all the shows, all the podcasts are archived for you to enjoy anytime you wish. And again, if you have any questions about me, the show, any of our guests like Aruna, or if you think you know someone who should be on the show, email me, josh@hellomynameisjosh.com. I just want to say thank you so very much. Please keep the conversations going. Remember, you can also find me on Facebook. You can also find me on Instagram. You can also find me on Twitter. I'll leave all those links below, and all the links that you can find more about Aruna as well. As always, my name is Joshua Kangley. I thank you. And until next time, I'll talk to you later.